The second day of trial resumed this morning at the Logan County Courthouse. The defendant, Michael Newberry, was installing cable TV last August in the home where Janella Garret was babysitting and last seen alive. John Nair was called to testify in the trial about mid-morning. Nair is the father of the two children Janella Garret was babysitting the night she was killed. Nair's 4-year-old daughter, Christy, has not been allowed to testify, but her parents have been given permission by the court to relate what she told them about that night. John Nair, Christy's father, testified he asked Christy the next day what happened to Janella the night before. The little girl said she saw Janella leave with the TV man in a brown pickup. She asked to go with them, but told there wasn't room and to go and get in bed with her little brother. Then the father said he asked his daughter if Janella was smiling when she left, or if she was sad or unhappy. Christy answered Janella was not unhappy. But a different story came out earlier this morning when Christy's mother testified. Mrs. Nair said Christy told her she heard a voice tell Janella to put her to bed, which Janella did. This afternoon, 3 witnesses who were working in a field close to the Nair's house that evening were called to the stand. 2 of them said they saw Newberry's pickup return to the Nair's house during the night, but the other witness said he didn't see any vehicles at the Nair's residence. Testimony will continue tomorrow with the district attorney calling expert witnesses from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the Logan County Courthouse. Last time was at 9:30 p.m. when Mrs. Garret testified Janella said the TV man was gone and assured her stepmother she was okay. Testimony will continue tomorrow with the district attorney calling expert witnesses from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the Logan County Courthouse.
Partly sunny, windy, and warm today with south to southwest winds at 20 to 40 miles an hour. Clear and colder tonight, sunny and warm tomorrow and Thursday. Merle Haggard starts another 5 back-to-back on KOMA.
If you're looking for information fast, there's nothing more immediate than radio. And that fact hasn't been lost on Cuba's Fidel Castro. The communist leader plans to interfere with some U.S. AM stations, including Oklahoma City's KOMA. He's going to do it with power. KOMA's 50,000-watt transmitter is the most powerful you can use legally in the U.S. Castro is building 2 stations with 10 times the output, 500,000 watts. That kind of power will virtually destroy some U.S. stations. For instance, WHO in Des Moines can be heard throughout the plains and Midwest. Once Castro gets on the air, they'll be lucky to get out of Des Moines. As for KOMA, they're not sure yet how their signal will be affected, but any kind of communist interference isn't welcome.
If what I think is going to happen happens, the problem we'll have will be out in the hinterlands in the nighttime coverage. So what we'll be doing is we'll be seeing interference in some of the surrounding states. Hopefully, and it's just a hope at this point, it won't be in Metro Oklahoma City or Oklahoma.
Partly sunny, windy, and warm today with south to south.
Aside from complaining, there's really nothing the U.S. can do about Castro's broadcasts. Even if his ratings are bad, we can't cancel him. Ted Brown, Action 4.
The bond issue, if passed, would have cost the average homeowner an additional $30 a year. The money would have been used to make capital improvements on all the city schools, many of which are over 50 years old. But not just the outside of the buildings needed repair.
The insides of the schools need repairs too. Take, for example, this girls' restroom at one local school. The children have no privacy. There are no doors in the bathroom. And there are a number of sanitary deficiencies. For example, no toilet paper, no soap, no running water. It's things like these, the proponents say, were desperately needed in order to improve the environment at city schools.
You know, you can only repair things so long before we're going to have to replace some boilers before long. We're going to have to replace some ceilings and floors. You can't keep putting chewing gum on these things forever.
What you end up doing is patching and band-aiding, when the idea is to take care of those problems by getting at the root of them and then freeing your time and resources from your operating budget to do preventative maintenance to keep things from deteriorating down the line.
But the people against the bond issue questioned whether $32 million was needed to do the patching.
I think the no voters are asking, where has our money gone? And as a result of that, I think in a sense, that's a yes vote for an investigative audit. I think we need to have an investigative audit.
It's easy to sit out there and take pot shots and say mismanagement, but when you don't come forth with any specifics, not one example has been given of where funds have been mismanaged. Not one person has taken the time to challenge the public audits that are already available. So that's kind of a smokescreen to get people excited and out to vote no, and it worked in some instances.
People may be hearing these same sort of arguments again. Dr. Payzant would like to bring it up again for a vote in the fall. So the school bond issue is by no means a dead issue. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Superintendent's Office.
Clearly, most drugs available overseas and not here are not touted as cure-alls.
Generally, the drugs that we've been talking about over the years that people have said, well, I've got to go to Europe to obtain that drug, have been variations of drugs that are already available in the United States.
He's a candidate for follow-up sclerotherapy.
Still, the doctor felt so strongly about an overseas drug for gallstones, he made sure patients knew treatment was available in Europe.
Isn't that like a private physician playing FDA, though?
In a way it is. In a way it is.
Do you find no problem with that?
None in the situation where the data, to me, is persuasive that the drug is certainly safe.
Much of that foreign data the FDA will not allow in its approval of drugs for the U.S. Dr. Nanette Wenger, who serves on an FDA advisory committee, says it could be the time to change that.
I expect this would vary with the quality of the data and the amount of control that goes into it. And certainly, if the data were comparable to that we collected, if we had access to review the original records, as we do here, then I don't think there would be a problem.
The groundwork for that is being laid. Since 1979, the FDA streamlining process has been underway.
The kinds of things that the agency is now looking at, for example, is to what extent does the drug industry have to submit huge volumes of case histories associated with the drug, or to what extent can the industry just summarize that information and present it to the agency. We're also looking into what kind of regulation is necessary for the very early testing of drugs in people.
Another streamlining effort, establishment of a congressional commission and an FDA task force to review the whole FDA process. Things have already speeded up. Last year, 27 new drugs were approved in this country, more than any year since the thalidomide era. Doctors, manufacturers, and patients all have a big stake in that speed up.
The problem is that in order to expedite it from their standpoint, I don't know that it's realistically financially, because it would require significantly increasing the funding of the FDA.
One has to hope that what we're seeing from the FDA currently is not just a cosmetic response to the demands of the Reagan administration for more efficiency. The patient is a patient, but the patient is also a consumer. And in the free enterprise system, as you well know, the consumer pays for everything.
This is Jerry Adams, Action 4 News, reporting.
Like the airline and auto industries, trucking companies have fallen on hard times. Time DC claims it's losing $1 million a month. The company wants its employees to help bail it out by taking a pay cut, shorter vacations, and fewer holidays. But the Teamsters say Time DC is asking for unfair sacrifices. They say the company's latest pay proposals can't compare with past labor contracts.
Well, it's a whole lot different. They're taking away so many different things, in each article they're changing it around. It's just not even close to what the old contract was.
These trucks will remain idle until an agreement can be reached. The company says that without some labor concessions, it will go broke, and these trucks will remain idle permanently. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Southeast Oklahoma City.
In February of 1979, 21-year-old Terry Pierce entered an intramural wrestling meet. While competing in a gym much like this, he was injured, and he was feeling dizzy, so some friends took him out of the gymnasium. Terry then blacked out and fell and hit his head on the floor. When Terry awoke, he was paralyzed from the neck down, unable to speak. Now, 2 years later, Terry's condition is the same, and perhaps more tragic. Until recently, the young man was a mind trapped in a useless body. Then Professor Lewis Irving heard of the former student's plight. A friend at the Tulsa Rehabilitation Center called and told him that Terry could live a productive life with the help of a wheelchair and a computer. So the professor started a campus fund drive for the $12,000 needed. He feels the goal is a practical one.
The man needs help. It costs you and me $15,000 a year to keep a person in prison, 1 year. It seems like you and I can find $12,000 to give a man back the capability of supporting himself and having a lot of self-confidence. If we can put a man in prison and waste $15,000 on just the maintenance of that position if the person chooses not to re-socialize, we can surely find $12,000 to give to a man that's got a need to go ahead and progress for himself.
The college and city of Edmond are closing in on the goal. They now have almost $10,000. If you would like to help them reach $12,000, you can send contributions to the Terry Pierce Fund, Office VP Administration, Room 204, Central State University, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73034. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at Central State University.
Police in Moore, Oklahoma arrested 23-year-old Timothy Earl Rist late Friday night. Rist was driving a car that matches descriptions of one seen near the shopping center where 17-year-old Tammy Carter worked and from which she was abducted last month. Rist is an unemployed oil field worker. Saturday morning, police arrested 20-year-old Michael Eugene Harmon. Harmon and Rist shared the apartment where police say they found a blood-stained bedsheet and other evidence to connect the men to Carter's death. Later today, authorities plan to charge Rist, Harmon, and a third suspect with abducting, raping, and killing Carter on March 6th. The third suspect is out of state, but police believe they have a lead on where he is. Carter's body was found the day after she disappeared in a stream in North Norman. Police say they have been investigating the three men as firm suspects for a little more than a week. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in Cleveland County.
The State Transportation Commission didn't take much time before deciding to refurbish 60 miles of abandoned railroad track. It's a $5.2 million project. Officials say once the track between Altus and Burke Burnett, Texas is fixed, all of Oklahoma will eventually benefit.
Anytime we can provide a good means of transport for the state's commodities that are produced here, we've helped the economy of the entire state. So this little project is fairly small in terms of mileage and in dollars, but it's extremely important to the people of southwestern Oklahoma and the economy of the state in general.
The track used to belong to the Rock Island Railroad, and once restored, the state will lease the track to the Katy Railroad. 80% of the cost will be paid for through federal funds and the rest from state money. The Katy will be responsible for the upkeep of the line after it is restored. And if the project works out, similar deals will be made with other railroad lines. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Oklahoma City.
The Capitol, the seat of state government and camouflage for what lies underneath. It's no secret that the state civil defense office lies underneath 14 feet of dirt and concrete on the Capitol grounds. The purpose of the defense center isn't a secret either.
This facility here is designed to move 3 feet. And all the equipment in it is designed to withstand the blast. So in case of a nuclear attack, we would hope to be able to survive and to operate and to help the citizens of Oklahoma get themselves and their government back in operation. The continuity of government.
The map you see in front of me here is a record of the disasters that struck Oklahoma in 1981. Now, these disasters combined would be nothing compared to a nuclear holocaust. In that event, the leaders of the state of Oklahoma would come here to the Emergency Operations Center. This room, in effect, would become the seat of government for Oklahoma. The communications room would be the nerve center for coordinating rescue and survival efforts. From here, officials can broadcast information on the FM band, information they get from a network of radio and teletype equipment that puts them in touch with other Oklahoma civil defense offices, as well as national authorities in Colorado Springs. The entire facility is designed to house 200 people, mostly state and civil defense officials. It has its own power generators. Like just about everything else in the complex, they are set on springs. They say the entire facility can take a near direct 20 megaton strike and survive intact. When it happens, if it ever happens, the wheels start turning. The Emergency Operations Center goes into action and is sealed off. No one gets in, no one leaves until it's safe. This steel door is over a foot thick, and it'll keep state leaders safe inside. But what about the rest of us left outside? More on that tomorrow. Ted Brown, Action 4 at the State Capitol.
For Bessie and her younger daughter, Sheila, it seemed like 32 years of waiting at the airport alone.
I'm a nervous wreck. I don't know what to do. It's been so long.
What Betsy did was pass the time explaining the crazy last 24 hours of her life. In that short time, she had been contacted by a daughter given up for adoption over 3 decades ago. A daughter who had spent the majority of that time looking for her mother.
She said she kept a track of us all the way up until I lived on Gano. And then she lost track of us, and then she, somehow or another, she got a hold of her real daddy's people. And they told her where my folks lived. Then she called Winona, Missouri, and got a hold of my brother, and he told her where I was at. So then she sent me a telegram, and that's when I called her.
As a result of that call, Bessie's long-lost daughter, Laura, hopped on a plane with a ticket from Arizona to Oklahoma City. As the flight arrived, Laura's mother and sister stood waiting, both with anxious, nervous looks. The looks didn't get any better because Laura was the last one off the plane, and when she did come down the ramp, neither recognized the other. Never again will Laura have to look for her mother and sister. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at Will Rogers World Airport.
This fire at the Springlake amusement park was the last chapter of the recreation center's final days. The blaze did $250,000 worth of damage, gutting the arcade and destroying the roller coaster. Rather than to rebuild, the owner decided to sell the park. Now the 95 acres of land remains locked up and deteriorates as time goes by. No one had much use for the land until the Oklahoma City School Board decided Springlake would be an ideal place to build a new vocational technical training center. The board is offering $850,000 for the amusement park land. In the past, several neighborhoods have opposed the center being built, but one school board member says that shouldn't be a problem in northeast Oklahoma City.
I think the community is, for the most part, receptive to the idea, all right? For the primary reason that northeast Oklahoma City has been devastated by this city, okay, with its future plannings. And what has happened is a lot of things, houses, educational institutions, and other kinds of establishments have been torn down. But there has been very, very little rebuilt. So from that standpoint, the community is very receptive to it because for the first time, it will add something rather than destroy something.
Votech schools offer a wide variety of training from key punch operators to welders. There are 2 Votech schools on the north side of town now. The idea is to bring all those training programs together under one roof. Southside residents already have a fairly large center. The school board feels training other than a college education is fast becoming the more marketable skill, and a new Votech center should be able to accommodate 900 students and offer even more trades for them to learn. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Oklahoma City Skills Center.
This is one of 2 vans that checked Edmonds convenience stores, each armed with a juvenile and 4 undercover officers. The operation was supposed to be top secret, but this stop and most of the others for this group struck out. Police think the stores were tipped off. After sending this van carrying a male youth to 10 stores, they decided to pull a switch. These guys stopped and the other group took over. Those stores that had been tipped off were expecting a male. This group included a female. They were very successful. 3/4 of the stores they went to sold the minor beer. After hitting all the places on their list, the van backtracked. This time the officers went in and came out with the cashier that had sold the beer illegally.
What's that?
It's a news crew.
Why? Why?
Edmond police know this type of raid won't put an end to the sales, but it will make it harder for the juveniles. Those stores that were busted will probably toughen up on their ID checks to avoid another run-in with the law and possible loss of their license. But as one officer put it, if they want it, they'll find a way to get it. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Edmond.
Police were called to the 1100 block of North Independence about 11 o'clock last night. They were told a man had been shot. They found 22-year-old Ronnie Fred Ventnor lying in the street with a single gunshot wound in the chest. He was rushed to St. Anthony's Hospital, where he later died from the wound. Police say the apparent motive behind the shooting was domestic in nature. They say they were told that the victim had been harassing a woman in the neighborhood. Ventnor was riding a 10-speed bike by her home when her husband chased him down and stopped him nearby. An argument followed and then the shooting. The suspect in the case is 24-year-old Ricky Lee Christie. Police say Christie was booked into jail for first-degree murder. Ted Brown, Action 4 on the Northwest Side.